All right. Well, welcome to a confessional booth. And today we are talking about shame. Surprise, surprise. It is this is going to go with the confessions, right? This subject of shame is going to come up over and over again, but we're going to be exploring all sorts of different aspects of feelings and emotions that come up uh, around shame as well. And so today we're going to be talking about shame, not exactly in the way that most people think about it. So we're not going to be just looking at obvious shame like embarrassment or guilt. We are going to go into a layer deeper into the kind of shame that's a lot more subtle, and it's a lot more common in some respects, in the way that it surfaces and the way that it shows. So it shows up in various patterns. And so that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to explore things like staying in control and overthinking and avoidance and sex and relationships. So in this episode, I'm going to break down what shame actually is and what it's not, how it forms, and most importantly, how it tends to show up in everyday life, often without you even realizing it. And so it is just to start to make you aware and to see more clearly. Because once you can see the pattern, you are not going to be as stuck inside of it. Clarity is huge with shame. Most people think they don't carry shame, especially the ones who are doing well, people that are holding it together, people who are functioning, even highly functioning people. And so I see this a lot in men, I see it in women, and there's a quiet assumption that, yeah, I've dealt with my stuff, I'm good, but shame does not always show up in obvious ways. And I would say that it usually shows up in different ways, because the nature of shame is very, I like to use the word squirmy. For me, shame is squirmy within myself, and I see it in others. So it is so easy to deny shame, because shame, it just disappears. It just hides. It wants to hide in the furthest recesses of your body mind. So it's not always obvious. Sometimes it's super obvious, but I would say most times it's not. It's not usually heavy, collapsed, like I feel bad about myself kind of feeling. Sometimes it is, but it can be way more subtle. For example, it can feel like overthinking. So, for example, replaying a conversation in your head later, wondering if you said the wrong thing. It can feel like needing to stay in control, like getting irritated when plans change last minute, even if it's not a big deal. Or not being able to fully relax, like you're on vacation, everything is fine, but your body still feels a bit on edge. Perhaps a better question is not, do I have shame, but rather, where is it hiding? To make this really simple, shame is not the same as guilt. So very simply put, guilt is I did something wrong. Like you snapped at your partner and later you think, yeah, that wasn't great. I should clean that up. I feel bad about it. Shame is different. So shame is more like, I'm bad at relationships. I always mess things up. I'm just not that kind of person. It turns a moment into an identity. And that difference actually matters because guilt can move. You can repair it. You can apologize. You can clean it up. But shame doesn't work like that. Shame lingers. It attaches. And it is really important to understand that shame usually forms early on in life. So, not because something is wrong with you, but because at some point your brain, your system, your nervous system had to adapt. So, maybe, for example, you were a kid who got told to toughen up when you showed emotion. So you learned, okay, it's not okay to show that. Or maybe you were only really noticed when you achieved something, good grades or sports or being the strong one. So you learned that's how you get approval. Or maybe you said something vulnerable once and it got laughed at, or you got shut down, and something in you shifted, adapted. Something said, okay, not doing that again. So your nervous system, your brain got smart. It adjusted. And those patterns don't just disappear just because you grow up. They just get more subtle. Or some people would say they get repressed, pushed down, rejected. So let's talk about where this actually shows up, because this is where most people miss it. They don't realize that there's shame underneath these following things. One place is control. If you notice that you need things a certain way, like you like being in charge, you don't love uncertainty, that is not just preference. It can look like you're the one planning everything, or you struggle when your partner takes the lead, or you get frustrated if something doesn't go according to plan. Even small things like someone else driving or someone else picking the restaurant can feel slightly uncomfortable. On the surface, it's easy to say, I just like things done properly, or I like it done in a certain way. But underneath, a lot of the time, it's about safety. Because if you are in control, nothing catches you off guard. And if nothing catches you off guard, you don't get exposed. Another one is overperformance. This one is big, especially for high achieving men or high achieving women. From the outside, it looks like discipline. So working hard, you could be really working to build something. You're really pushing yourself. But internally, it can feel like you hit a goal and almost immediately you move on to the next one. So you don't really sit with that win. There's always a low-level sense of I should be doing more. Or even in relationships, you feel like you have to be on, strong, capable, providing, holding it together. And if you slow down too much, there's this discomfort, like you're falling behind or not enough. It can be just pure ambition that's trying to outrun something quieter underneath. There might be no shame underneath that ambition. But these are some examples of where shame can hide. Another place or another way shame can hide is through avoidance. This can be where people tend to get a bit honest if they're willing. It can look like you reach for your phone the second there's a pause. You fill your schedule so there's no real downtime. You tell yourself you'll deal with things later, but later doesn't come. Or avoidance can happen through so many things, so many distractions. So porn, for example, or constant stimulation of things, not even in an extreme way, just enough that you don't have to sit in silence with yourself. Because if you do, there is a discomfort there. Not always intense, just present. We could say low level. We could call it garden variety. However you want to say it, there is some level of unease or discomfort. And instead of sitting with it, you move away from it. And then there's sex. This is where shame can get really quiet or it can get really loud. But even when it's quiet, and maybe especially if, it can be really impactful because it shows up as something else. So, for example, it can look like rushing to the finish, not because you want to, but because when you slow down, that feels uncomfortable. Or you feel when you slow down, you lose control. Or being in your head the whole time, thinking about how you're doing, or if you're lasting long enough, or if your partner is enjoying it, or not saying what you actually want, like if you have a desire, but it feels just easier to not bring it up. Or you go along with what you think is expected. And over time, that creates a kind of distance. You're there, but not fully in it. You might also notice this in your body. So this one is subtle. If it's hard to feel, if it's hard to stay present, it can look like you're getting a massage and instead of relaxing, your mind is racing. Or someone touches you and it takes a while to actually register the sensation. Or during intimacy, you kind of check out for a bit. Not fully, but enough that you're not completely there. The body doesn't open where it doesn't feel safe. So if there's been any imprint of shame, the body learns to hold. It learns to tighten, to stay even just a little bit guarded, or a lot. And what is really important to remember here is that if you are not aware of your shame, it doesn't go away. It just runs things quietly. It chooses the kind of partner you feel comfortable with. It influences whether you speak up or stay quiet. It determines how much pleasure you actually let yourself feel. And for a lot of people, it creates a life that looks good, but feels slightly restricted, like you're living, but not fully expressed. Here is a very important thing I want you to remember. Shame is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is usually proof that something happened and your brain and nervous system adapted in a way that made sense for you at that time, at that age, or ages, if it was recurring. And many times it adapted in order to protect you, like learning not to speak up so you wouldn't be shut down, or becoming high performing so you'd be valued. That's intelligence. But what protected you then can limit you now. And just to start noticing, where do you tighten? Where do you tighten up? Where in your body? It could be your neck. It could be, usually neck and shoulders is an area where the tension will show. Or it can show up in the chest. You can tighten up in your solar plexus underneath the rib cage, diaphragm muscle, or you can tighten up in your anal sphincter, right? So the tension can be anywhere in the body, but those are some common examples of where tension gets held. And ask yourself, where do you avoid? Where do you distract? Where do you not want to slow down and be okay? You're not filling the space or filling the time with one distraction after the other. And notice, is there something underneath? Is there discomfort or something that's not feeling like it wants to come to the surface, but you feel it there? And ask yourself, where do you perform? So instead of actually feeling into your body and feeling into your emotions, you perform instead. It could be in a conversation, or it could be at work, it could be in sex. So this is an invitation to just notice, just bring awareness. That's it. This is the first shift. This is where, from noticing and from awareness, things can start to open. Things can slowly start to shift. It is not going to happen all at once. These can be just small things, and that's why they can be very easily discounted. Just stay present with them, be honest with yourself, and maybe shame is actually not there. Maybe these things are from something else. But once you start to see it, you have a choice what to do. And just to have that clarity and awareness is an excellent, in fact, place to start. So just to bring this together as we wrap up today, shame is not always obvious. It doesn't always feel like I feel bad about myself. But often it shows up in patterns. Patterns like needing to stay in control, constantly performing or proving yourself, avoiding stillness or discomfort, holding back in sex or not fully expressing what you want, or feeling slightly disconnected from your body. And most of the time, these patterns are not random. They are learned. So they were ways your system adapted at some point to protect you. But if they go unnoticed, they just keep running in the background. So the takeaway for today is to just simply start to pay attention. Where do you tighten? Where do you avoid? Where do you perform instead of actually feeling what's happening? Because that awareness alone is where things start to shift. And from there, you actually have a bit more choice in how you show up.